The message came on a Tuesday. After decades of sending signals into the void, humanity had almost given up hope of a response. Then, without warning, every radio telescope on Earth picked up the same transmission. It was clear, structured, and unmistakably artificial. James Miller was eating a sandwich in the NASA cafeteria when the alarm started blaring. As the lead communications specialist for the International Space Coalition, he was among the first to see the translated message. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Galactic Concord, a union of civilized species. Your signals have reached our outer monitoring stations. We wish to establish formal contact." Within hours, governments worldwide scrambled to form a response team. James found himself appointed as humanity's primary diplomatic representative, not because he was the most qualified diplomat, but because he understood communication systems better than anyone else on the planet. "I'm an engineer, not a politician," James protested when told of his new role. "Exactly," said Director Patel, his boss. "They'll respect technical knowledge more than smooth talking. Besides, you think faster on your feet than anyone I know." 3 days later, a sleek silver ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It made no attempt to hide or use stealth. It simply arrived, positioning itself in full view of Earth's observation systems. The ship was unlike anything humans had built. Nearly a mile long, its hull flowed like liquid metal, with no visible seams or joints. It dwarfed the International Space Station, making humanity's greatest space achievement look like a child's toy by comparison. A shuttle detached from the main vessel and descended toward the designated landing site, a hastily prepared airfield outside of Geneva. World leaders, scientists, and military personnel gathered to witness humanity's first extraterrestrial visitors. James stood at the front of the welcoming committee, trying to control his breathing. The shuttle touched down without a sound, hovering momentarily before settling on the tarmac. A door slid open, revealing 3 figures. The aliens walked with a smooth grace despite their unusual appearance. Their leader stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. 4 arms emerged from a broad torso, and a crest of fin-like appendages crowned its head. "I am Admiral Dorax," the alien said, its voice surprisingly clear and understandable through what must have been some kind of translation device. "Chief Representative of the Galactic Concord Assessment Division." James stepped forward. "James Miller, representing Earth. We welcome you to our planet." Admiral Dorax's large, multifaceted eyes studied James carefully. "Your species has achieved much in a short time. However, we have concerns about your readiness to join the wider galactic community." The following days were filled with meetings, presentations, and tours of Earth's major facilities. The aliens were polite but clearly unimpressed by much of what they saw. During a tour of NASA's Spacecraft Development Center, Admiral Dorax examined the latest deep space vessel prototype with what James was beginning to recognize as disappointment. "This is your most advanced ship?" the Admiral asked, running a 3-fingered hand along the hull. "Yes," James replied. "It's designed to reach Mars in just 30 days." Admiral Dorax made a sound that might have been a sigh. "At such speeds, you would be unable to outrun even the slowest patrol vessels of the Void Swarm." "The Void Swarm?" James asked. "One of many threats that exist beyond your solar system," Dorax explained. "They consume worlds with insufficient defenses. This is why the Concord exists. Mutual protection." That evening, in a private meeting with Earth's Security Council, the aliens were more direct. "Your planet possesses valuable resources and a strategic position," said Dorax. "But your fleet is virtually non-existent. We've focused our efforts on sustainable development and solving our own problems before expanding outward," explained the UN Secretary General. Admiral Dorax's fins flattened against his head, a gesture James had learned indicated skepticism. "Noble goals, but the galaxy does not reward the unprepared," said the Admiral. "The Concord can offer protection, but we must assess whether Earth would be a burden or an asset to our alliance. Later, James found himself alone with one of the alien delegation's junior members, an engineer named Krell. Unlike the others, Krell seemed genuinely curious about human technology. "Your power generation methods are unusual," Krell said as they examined a fusion research facility. "You've taken different paths than most species." "Necessity drives innovation," James replied. "We've had to work with limited resources." Krell's head tilted. "Yet you accomplish much with little. Our sensors detected over 2,000 satellites in orbit, but only a handful of actual vessels. Why build so many small devices instead of proper ships?" "Different purposes require different tools," James explained. "We network our systems together rather than building single large platforms." Krell seemed to consider this. "Interesting approach. Admiral Dorax will still be concerned about your defensive capabilities, however." "Why is the Concorde so focused on military strength?" James asked carefully. Krell's voice lowered. "Because we have seen what happens to worlds that cannot defend themselves. The Void Swarm has consumed 17 civilizations in the past century alone. The Concorde was formed after the third extinction." James felt a chill. "And you think Earth could be a target?" "All resource-rich worlds are targets," Krell replied. "And your planet has already been broadcasting its location for decades." That night, James couldn't sleep. He reviewed everything he'd learned about the Concorde. They seemed benevolent, but their obsession with fleet size and military power was troubling. If Earth wanted to join the galactic community, they would need to prove their worth. The following morning, James made a proposal to Director Patel. "They're judging us by their standards, not ours," he said. "We need to show them what humans can really do." "And how do you suggest we do that?" Patel asked. James smiled. "By playing to our strengths. If they want to see our fleet, let's show them something they've never imagined." Admiral Dorax watched from the observation deck as Earth rotated slowly below. His second-in-command approached with a data tablet. "Assessment results, Admiral. Their technology is at least a century behind Concorde standards. Their space vessels number fewer than 50, and none have weapons capable of repelling even a minor incursion." Dorax's fins rippled with concern. "They are so vulnerable, yet so unaware of the danger. They think their isolation protects them. Shall I prepare the protection proposal? The standard resource tribute in exchange for a defensive fleet?" Dorax considered for a moment. "Yes, but include additional cultural and technological assessments. There's something about these humans that troubles me. They lack proper ships, yet they've somehow survived and thrived. I want to understand how before we proceed." Little did the Admiral know, humanity was about to redefine what it meant to have a fleet. The Concorde assessment team arrived 1 week after Admiral Dorax's initial visit. 5 alien specialists, each an expert in different fields, transported down to Earth in a smaller shuttle that gleamed like polished obsidian under the morning sun. James Miller waited for them at the newly established Interspecies Coordination Center, a repurposed convention hall in Geneva. Beside him stood Tom Reed and Anna Wilson, Earth's top scientists in propulsion physics and materials engineering. "Remember," James whispered to his colleagues, "they're looking for weakness. Don't give them any." The lead assessor, a tall alien named Vex, stepped forward. Unlike Admiral Dorax, Vex's skin was a pale green with geometric patterns that seemed to shift as he moved. "We will begin our evaluation immediately," Vex announced without preamble. "First, we must inspect your orbital defenses." James exchanged glances with Tom. "Of course, we've prepared transport to our space elevator in Ecuador." Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Space elevator. You have functioning gravity manipulation technology." "No," Anna replied. "We use carbon nanotube cables. Simple physics." The aliens conferred quietly among themselves. James caught the word primitive several times. "We will use our own transport," Vex decided. "It will be faster." The human delegation soon found themselves aboard the alien shuttle, rising through the atmosphere at a speed that made Earth's fastest rockets seem like bicycles. The curve of the planet appeared below them, blue and white, and breathtaking. "Your planet is quite beautiful," commented one of the aliens, a specialist named Mira who focused on resource assessment. "Rich in water and biodiversity. Very appealing to the Void Swarm." "You keep mentioning this Void Swarm," Tom said. "What exactly are they?" Vex gestured toward a view screen, which flickered to life, showing something that resembled a massive cloud of metallic insects. "They are a collective consciousness that spreads across the galaxy. They consume worlds, strip mining them of all useful elements, and leaving lifeless husks behind." The humans watched in horror as the recording showed an orange-colored planet being swarmed, and then gradually turning gray as its resources were extracted. "This happened 3 standard cycles ago," Vex said. "The planet had minimal defenses, much like Earth." James felt a chill run down his spine. "And that's why you're so focused on our fleet capacity." "Precisely," Vex replied. "Now, please direct us to your primary defense vessels." The next few hours were uncomfortable. The assessment team visited the International Space Station, examined Earth's handful of military satellites, and reviewed plans for the Mars Defense Initiative, humanity's most ambitious space military project to date. With each inspection, the aliens' disappointment became more evident. "This is insufficient," Vex finally declared as they examined the blueprints for Earth's newest spacecraft, a vessel designed to intercept asteroids. This would not survive first contact with even a scout party from the Void Swarm. Tom Reed, who had been quiet for most of the tour, finally spoke up. "Perhaps you'd be interested in seeing our experimental propulsion lab." Vex seemed ready to dismiss the suggestion, but one of the other assessors, a technical specialist named Orion, raised a hand. "I would like to see this." At the Global Advanced Propulsion Laboratory in Switzerland, Tom led the group through security and into a massive underground facility. At the center of the main chamber sat what looked like a small metal sphere, about the size of a beach ball, surrounded by complex equipment. "What is this?" Orion asked, genuine curiosity in his voice for the first time. "We call it the gravity lens drive," Tom explained. "It creates a focused distortion in space-time, allowing for movement without traditional propulsion." "Impossible," Vex said flatly. "Your species does not have the mathematical knowledge for such technology." Tom smiled slightly. "Would you like a demonstration?" Before the aliens could respond, Tom activated a control panel. The sphere hummed softly, then vanished. A moment later, it reappeared on the other side of the room. The aliens fell silent. "How far can this device travel?" Orion asked finally. "Currently, we've tested it to the moon and back," Anna Wilson said, stepping forward. "But theoretically, there's no upper limit to the distance. The real challenge is precision targeting over longer jumps." "And how many vessels have you equipped with this technology?" Vex demanded. James interceded. "None yet. It's still experimental." Vex's skin patterns darkened. "So you have promising technology that you've failed to implement in your defense systems. This confirms our concerns about your species' readiness." As they left the lab, Orion fell into step beside James. "Your approach is unusual. Most species develop standard fleet vessels before attempting such advanced physics. Humans tend to do things our own way," James replied. "Sometimes we skip steps. Skipping steps leads to vulnerability," Vex called from ahead of them. "The Concord protocols exist for a reason." Back at the coordination center, the assessment team prepared their formal report. James and his colleagues waited anxiously in an adjoining room. "They're not impressed," Anna said quietly, "no matter what we show them." Tom nodded. "They're judging us by their standards. Fleet size, ship tonnage, weapon yields. They're missing the bigger picture." "Which is?" James asked. "That humans have never approached space the way they do," Tom replied. "We network. We adapt. We find solutions that don't require brute force. The door opened, and Vex entered with the assessment team. He carried what looked like a crystal tablet. "We have completed our evaluation," Vex announced. "Earth's defensive capabilities are severely inadequate by Concord standards. You have promising theoretical research but no practical implementation. Your orbital assets are unshielded and vulnerable." James took a deep breath. "And your recommendation?" "The Concord is prepared to offer provisional membership and protection," Vex stated, "in exchange for resource rights and technology sharing." "What kind of resources?" Anna asked sharply. 20% of your planetary rare earth elements, 30% of your water ice from your polar regions, and mining rights to your lunar surface," Mira replied matter-of-factly. "Standard rates for protection of a pre-fleet civilization." Tom's face reddened. "That's a very generous offer," James cut in, giving Tom a warning glance. "We'll need to discuss this with our world leaders." "Of course," Vex said. "Admiral Dorax will return in 3 of your weeks to receive your answer. I suggest you use that time wisely to consider the alternative." After the aliens departed, James called an emergency meeting with Earth's Defense Council. "They think we're helpless," he told the assembled leaders. "They're offering protection in exchange for what amounts to colonization." "What choice do we have?" asked the Russian general. "You've seen what this void swarm can do." James looked at Tom and Anna. "We need to show them what humans can really do when our backs are against the wall. We need to think differently." "What are you suggesting?" Director Patil asked. James smiled grimly. "If they want to see a fleet, let's give them something they've never imagined." In orbit above Earth, a small probe from the Concord ship continued to monitor all transmissions. It recorded a sudden increase in global communications, emergency meetings of world governments, and the mobilization of scientific teams worldwide. Aboard the main vessel, Admiral Dorax reviewed the assessment report with concern. "They have potential," he mused, "but they lack the fundamental understanding of galactic threats." His second-in-command nodded. "The resource agreement is fair. Many worlds have accepted similar terms." "Perhaps," Dorax replied, watching Earth rotate slowly on the view screen. "But something about these humans troubles me. They keep surprising us. I wonder what they'll do next." 3 weeks passed in a flurry of global activity. In every major nation, scientists worked around the clock. Military bases buzzed with unusual movements. Satellite launches increased threefold. Small, seemingly insignificant devices that the Concord observers dismissed as primitive monitoring equipment. James Miller barely slept. Dark circles formed under his eyes as he coordinated between governments, scientists, and military leaders. The plan was ambitious, perhaps impossible, but it was Earth's best hope. Admiral Dorax's ship returned exactly on schedule, appearing suddenly in orbit like a silver needle against the black of space. This time, the Admiral brought a larger delegation, 20 senior Concord officials in 3 shuttles that descended toward the Geneva landing site. "They're showing off their fleet strength," Anna Wilson muttered as they watched the shuttles land in perfect formation. "Subtle intimidation tactics. Let them posture," Tom Reed replied. "It'll make what comes next even better." James straightened his tie. "Remember the plan. Stay calm, no matter what they say." Admiral Dorax emerged from the lead shuttle, his blue skin catching the sunlight. Behind him came Vex and several new aliens of different species, representatives from the Concord's governing council. "James Miller," Dorax said, inclining his head slightly, "we have reviewed the assessment report in detail and come to deliver the Concord's formal proposal." The meeting took place in the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations. Representatives from every Earth nation filled the chamber, facing the alien delegation across a wide table. A tall, insect-like alien named Counselor Xin stepped forward, mandibles clicking as she spoke through her translator. "The Galactic Concord has existed for 12,000 standard cycles," she began. "In that time, we have incorporated 317 worlds into our protective alliance. Each member contributes according to their abilities and receives protection according to their needs. Holographic displays activated around the room, showing images of various planets and space stations. These worlds once stood alone, as Earth does now. Sin continued. Many no longer exist. The images shifted to show barren, lifeless planets. The void swarm shows no mercy to the unprepared. The UN Secretary General leaned forward. We understand the threat, Counselor. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Dorax took over. The Concorde will station a defensive fleet in your system, 12 capital ships and supporting vessels. In exchange, Earth will provide resources as outlined in our proposal, plus hosting rights for 3 Concorde bases on your planet and 5 in your orbital space. A murmur ran through the human delegation. And if we decline? Asked the Secretary General. Dorax's fins flattened against his head. The Concorde cannot force protection on any world. But understand this. The void swarm is approaching this sector. Our intelligence suggests that it will reach your system within 1 standard cycle, approximately 14 Earth months. Without Concorde protection, survival is unlikely. The room fell silent. James stood up. Admiral, Counselor, respected delegates, Earth appreciates the Concorde's concern for our safety. We request 3 days to discuss your proposal among our world leaders. 3 days is acceptable. Dorax agreed, though I must emphasize the urgency of your situation. After the aliens departed, the human delegation exploded into argument. This is extortion, shouted the representative from India. But what choice do we have? Countered the Brazilian delegate. You saw what happened to those other worlds. The resource demands would cripple our economies, added the European Union representative. And the bases on Earth. They're essentially asking for military occupation. The debate raged for hours, with no clear consensus emerging. Finally, James asked for silence. We have another option, he said quietly. Over the past 3 weeks, Tom Reed and Anna Wilson have been coordinating a global scientific effort. I believe they have something to show us. Tom activated a holographic display at the center of the room. The Concorde is judging us by their standards, massive ships, conventional weapons. But that's never been humanity's strength. We adapt. We innovate. We find unexpected solutions. The display showed a network of satellites, thousands of them, far more than Earth currently had in orbit. This is our proposed planetary defense network, Anna explained. Using modified versions of Tom's gravity lens technology, we can create a shield around Earth that no conventional fleet could penetrate. How is this possible? Asked the Chinese representative. The technology is still experimental. It was, Tom said with a small smile. Until we had the motivation to perfect it. The equations work. The miniaturization is possible. We've successfully tested a prototype that protected a 10-kilometer area, and we can scale this up to protect an entire planet. The skepticism in the Secretary General's voice was clear. We can, Anna confirmed, but we'll need resources from every nation, and we'll need to repurpose most of our existing satellites. How long would this take? Asked the U.S. President. James looked grave. 3 months for the basic network. 6 for full coverage. The Concorde gives us 3 days to decide, reminded the Russian president. Then we give them an answer they don't expect, James replied. We tell them we need 3 months to prepare for their protection, while we actually build our own solution. The Secretary General looked troubled. You're suggesting we deceive the Concorde. I'm suggesting we buy time, James corrected. If our system works, we can negotiate as equals, not as suppliants. If it fails, their offer will still stand. After hours of further debate, the world leaders reached a consensus. They would pursue Earth's own defense system while delaying the Concorde. 3 days later, Admiral Dorax and the Concorde delegation returned for Earth's answer. The Secretary General addressed them formally. The nations of Earth have carefully considered your proposal. We are grateful for the Concorde's concern for our safety. Dorax's posture straightened, anticipating acceptance. However, the Secretary General continued, "We require 3 months to prepare our world for your protection. We must relocate certain facilities, adjust our resource production, and prepare our people for this significant change." Admiral Dorax's fins rippled with surprise. 3 months is an unusual request. The standard integration period is 1 week. Earth is not a standard world, James interjected smoothly. Our political systems require time for proper implementation. Surely the Concorde, with its thousands of years of diplomatic experience, understands the need for cultural sensitivity. The Concorde delegates conferred among themselves in low tones. Finally, Councillor Xin stepped forward. 3 months will be granted, but no more. The threat approaches, and the Concorde fleet must establish defensive positions before the Void Swarm arrives. If Earth is not ready when we return, we cannot guarantee your safety. We understand, the Secretary General replied. Earth will be ready. After the aliens departed, James gathered with Tom and Anna in a secure room beneath the UN building. 3 months, Anna said, her voice tight with tension. Is it enough time? Tom ran a hand through his hair. It has to be. Every scientific mind on the planet is working on this. We've already launched the first test satellites. James looked at the global map on the wall, showing research centers lit up across every continent. Humanity has always done its best work under pressure. Now we just need to do the impossible. In orbit, Admiral Dorax watched Earth from his command deck. They're hiding something, he said to his second-in-command. The humans are planning something. Should we maintain surveillance? Dorax considered this. Increase monitoring. If they're building ships, we need to know. And if they're not building ships? Dorax's fins flattened in puzzlement. Then I cannot imagine what defense they think they're creating. Without a fleet, they are simply waiting to be consumed. Little did the Admiral know. The greatest fleet humanity would build wasn't ships at all, but something the Concorde had never imagined possible. The next 3 months transformed Earth in ways no one could have predicted. Old rivalries between nations faded as humanity united against a common threat. Resources poured into the Planetary Defense Network project, codenamed SHIELD. James Miller set up headquarters in a repurposed aircraft hangar outside of London. World leaders had given him extraordinary authority to coordinate the global effort. Maps and screens covered the walls, tracking the progress of thousands of individual projects worldwide. Status report, James called out as he entered the command center one morning, 51 days into their 3-month window. Anna Wilson looked up from her workstation, dark circles under her eyes. We've launched 412 satellites so far. The first orbital ring is nearly complete. And the power issue? James asked. Tom Reed appeared, carrying a steaming cup of coffee, his 5th of the day. Solved, mostly. The fusion boosters are working. Each satellite can now generate 3 times the energy we initially calculated. What about the Concorde observers? James lowered his voice. Anna grimaced. Still watching. They've positioned 4 monitoring vessels in high orbit. They're tracking our satellite launches. Let them watch, Tom said with a tired smile. They're looking for ships. They don't understand what we're building. A young technician rushed up to them. Sir, the test of the Australia sector is ready. They hurried to the main control room, where representatives from dozens of nations had gathered. On the massive central screen, a map showed a section of Australia's outback glowing blue. We've activated 50 satellites positioned over the test zone, Anna explained to the assembled officials. If this works, they'll create a localized shield effect, covering approximately 1,000 square kilometers. And if it doesn't work? Asked the Australian Prime Minister. Tom's expression was grim. Then we need to reconsider our approach. Fast. Anna initiated the countdown. Shield activation in 3, 2, 1. On the screen, the blue area pulsed once, then stabilized. Data streams poured in from monitoring stations. Energy field holding steady, called out a technician. Gravity lens distortion at optimal levels. Begin the test, James ordered. On another screen, they watched as fighter jets approached the shield area. They fired missiles at the protected zone. As each missile hit the invisible barrier, it seemed to slow, then stop completely, hanging in midair before gently dropping to the ground. A cheer erupted in the control room. "It's working," Anna exclaimed, grabbing Tom's arm. "The gravity distortion is functioning exactly as predicted." "Don't celebrate yet," Tom cautioned, though he was smiling. "This is just one small section. We need global coverage, and we're nowhere close to finished." James addressed the gathered officials. "You've seen what we can do. Now we need to triple our efforts. Every nation needs to increase production of the satellites. Every launch facility on Earth needs to be operating 24/7. The resources required are enormous," said the German Chancellor. "We're already stretching our economies to the breaking point." "It's still less than what the Concorde demanded," James replied firmly. "And when we're done, we'll own our defense system. We won't be paying tribute to alien protectors for generations." That convinced them. In the days that followed, the global effort intensified. Factories around the world converted to satellite production. Rockets launched hourly from sites on every continent. Children watched the night sky fill with new stars, the growing constellation of humanity's shield. In orbit, the Concorde observation vessels monitored this activity with increasing confusion. "They continue to launch small satellites," reported the alien observer to Admiral Dorax. "Over 800 now. But no defensive vessels. No weapons platforms. Just a network of simple communication devices." Admiral Dorax studied the reports with his 4 eyes narrowed. "These are not simple communication devices. They're too numerous, too precisely positioned." "What else could they be?" asked his second-in-command. "They have no offensive capabilities we can detect." "I don't know," Dorax admitted. "But the humans are executing a coordinated global plan. We should inform the Concorde Council." Back on Earth, progress continued at a frantic pace. The satellite network grew day by day, but problems arose as well. "We're behind schedule in the Pacific sector," Anna reported during a late-night meeting, 70 days into their countdown. "Launch facilities in that region are overtaxed." James studied the global map. "Redirect launches from South America to cover the gap. We can't have holes in the network." "There's another problem," Tom added grimly. "The power draw is higher than we calculated. When we activate the full shield, we might experience global power outages." "For how long?" James asked. "Minutes, maybe hours. We can't be sure." James thought for a moment. "Warn all nations to prepare backup systems for critical infrastructure. Hospitals, communications, military facilities. We'll have to weather the blackout until the system stabilizes." As the deadline approached, tension mounted. With just 1 week remaining before the Concorde's return, the satellite network was nearly complete. Over 3,000 devices positioned in precise orbital patterns around Earth. But they had yet to test the full system. "We only get one chance at this," James told the emergency session of the UN Security Council. "When the Concorde returns, they'll expect to see our answer. If we activate the shield too early, they might attack before it's stable. Too late, and they'll think we're rejecting their protection." "Can we be certain it will work?" asked the Secretary General. James looked at Tom and Anna, who exchanged glances. "No," Tom answered honestly. "The math works. The small-scale tests worked. But a planetary shield has never been attempted before. There are variables we can't predict. What we can promise," Anna added, "is that it's our best chance. If we surrender to the Concorde, we lose our autonomy forever. This way, we control our own fate." The Council voted unanimously to proceed. On the final day before the Concorde's scheduled return, Earth made its preparations. Hospitals switched to backup power. Military forces went on high alert, And in the SHIELD command center, James, Tom, and Anna made their final checks. All satellites report ready, Anna confirmed, her voice tense. Network integrity at 98.7%. Tom looked up from his calculations. It's as good as it's going to get. The remaining gaps are small enough that the field should bridge them. James took a deep breath and looked at the countdown clock. 12 hours until the Concorde's return. Begin the activation sequence, he ordered. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. In orbit, Admiral Dorax's flagship appeared with perfect timing, accompanied by a fleet of 12 massive warships. As they approached Earth, the Admiral observed the planet with growing confusion. Where are their defenses? He asked. I see no fleet, no orbital weapons platforms, just this strange network of satellites. His tactical officer suddenly straightened. Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from those satellites. There. A ripple of blue light spread across Earth's atmosphere, starting at the North Pole and racing toward the equator. As the Concorde fleet watched in astonishment, the entire planet seemed to shimmer for a moment before being enveloped in a translucent, iridescent shell. What is this? Dorax whispered, his fins extended in surprise. What have they done? Admiral Dorax stared at the shimmering blue field surrounding Earth, his fins twitching with confusion and alarm. Around him, the Concorde fleet hung in space, 12 massive warships built to protect planets from the most dangerous threat in the galaxy. Yet now, they faced something entirely unexpected. Analysis, Dorax demanded, his voice sharp. His science officer worked frantically at the control panel. It appears to be some kind of energy field generated by their satellite network. The field is distorting space-time around the planet. Can our weapons penetrate it? The tactical officer ran simulations. Unknown, Admiral. We have no record of this technology in our database. Dorax's second-in-command leaned closer. Should we consider this a hostile action? They've created a barrier without Concorde approval. The Admiral was silent for a moment, studying the blue sphere that Earth had become. No, this is interesting. Open a communication channel. On Earth, in the SHIELD command center, alarms sounded as the Concorde fleet appeared in orbit. SHIELD holding at 94% capacity, Anna reported, her fingers flying over the controls. Power drain is significant, but within acceptable parameters. Global blackouts reported across non-essential systems, added a technician. Emergency backups functioning as planned. James Miller stood before the main screen, watching the alien ships. They're not attacking. That's something. The communication system chimed. Incoming transmission from the Concorde flagship. Put it through, James ordered. Admiral Dorax's face appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable to human eyes. James Miller, the Admiral said evenly. It seems Earth has been productive during our absence. James straightened his shoulders. Admiral Dorax, welcome back. As you can see, we've developed our own approach to planetary defense. So I observe, Dorax replied. An unusual solution. The Concorde records show no similar defensive system in the known galaxy. We're creative that way, James said with a small smile. Indeed. The Admiral's fins rippled slightly. However, this barrier remains untested against actual threats. The Concorde offer of protection still stands. Before James could respond, another alarm blared through the command center. Multiple jump signatures detected, shouted the sensor operator. Large vessels appearing at the edge of the solar system. The screen split to show a new image, a swarm of dark, insect-like ships emerging from what looked like tears in space. There were hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. The void swarm, Anna whispered, her face pale. They're early. Admiral Dorax's image showed he was receiving the same information. It seems the Concorde intelligence was incorrect about the swarm's timeline. They are here now. On the screen, the swarm of ships began moving toward Earth with frightening speed. Your shield is untested. Dorax continued urgently. Allow the Concorde fleet to take defensive positions. This is no longer a negotiation. It is survival. James looked at Tom and Anna, then at the approaching swarm. Making a decision, he turned back to the screen. Admiral, we welcome the Concorde's assistance, but we will rely on our shield as the primary defense. Position your vessels behind our protective barrier. Dorax's eyes widened. You expect us to trust an untested defense system. We do, James replied firmly, and we're about to show you why. The Admiral hesitated, then nodded sharply. Very well. The Concorde fleet will hold position and observe, but we stand ready to engage if your shield fails. As the communication ended, Tom moved next to James. Bold move. Let's hope it works. Activate secondary systems, James ordered. Prepare drone deployment. Throughout the 3 months of building the shield, humanity had been working on another secret project. Hidden in underground facilities and abandoned mines, they had constructed thousands of small, unmanned vessels, each no bigger than a car, but powered by the same gravity lens technology as the shield. Drone swarm ready for deployment, reported the military coordinator. Launch bays opening worldwide. On screens around the room, they watched as the void swarm approached, a dark cloud against the stars, moving with singular purpose toward the resource-rich planet. They're testing the shield, Anna said, monitoring the energy readings, probing for weaknesses. The first void swarm ships reached the blue barrier and immediately fired energy weapons. The shield rippled but held, absorbing the attacks. Shield integrity holding at 91%. Anna reported. The gravity distortion is working. Their weapons are being dissipated. More and more swarm ships arrived, concentrating their fire on different sections of the shield. The blue barrier flickered in spots but continued to hold. They're surrounding the planet, Tom observed. Looking for a weak point. James nodded grimly. Time to show them our second surprise. Launch the drones. Across Earth, hidden bay doors opened in mountains, deserts, and beneath the oceans. Thousands of small, sleek vessels rose into the sky, punching through the shield via carefully calculated exit points. In orbit, Admiral Dorax watched in astonishment as Earth seemed to sprout its own swarm. Thousands of tiny ships emerging from the planet's surface. What are those? His tactical officer asked in amazement. I believe, Dorax said slowly, that Earth has a fleet after all. The human drones engaged the void swarm with devastating efficiency. Unlike conventional vessels, they used miniaturized gravity lens technology to create localized distortions in space. Enemy ships found themselves suddenly slowed, their weapons firing at targets that seemed to shift position instantly. Drone performance exceeding expectations, reported the military coordinator. Swarm ships unable to compensate for the gravity shifts. On the main screen, they watched as the human drones darted between the larger enemy vessels. The void swarm, accustomed to overwhelming planets with sheer numbers, found itself outmaneuvered. They're retreating from Sector 7, Anna called out. The drones are herding them away from the shield weak points. Hour after hour, the battle continued. The shield flickered but held. The drones, coordinated by Earth's combined military AI systems, adapted to each swarm tactic. When a drone was destroyed, 2 more took its place. Finally, after nearly 10 hours of continuous fighting, the void swarm began to withdraw. Ship after ship jumped away until only scattered remnants remained, quickly mopped up by the drone forces. In the shield command center, exhausted staff looked at each other in disbelief. We did it, Tom said quietly. The shield held, and the drones performed beyond all projections, Anna added, checking the final statistics. We lost only 22% of our forces. James allowed himself a smile. Now for the diplomatic part. Admiral Dorax requested permission to enter Earth's atmosphere with a small delegation. The meeting took place in the same United Nations hall where the Concorde had delivered their ultimatum 3 months earlier, but the atmosphere could not have been more different. The Concord Council extends its congratulations to Earth. Dorax began, his tone respectful. Your defense of your world was unprecedented. Thank you, Admiral, the Secretary-General replied. We hope this demonstrates that Earth is ready to join the galactic community as an equal partner, not as a protectorate. Dorax's fins extended fully, a sign of respect in his species. More than ready. Your approach to planetary defense has shown innovation that the Concord has not seen in 1,000 years. The gravity lens technology alone could revolutionize our defensive strategies across the galaxy. We're open to sharing our technology, James said. As part of a mutual exchange, of course. Of course, Dorax agreed. The Concord would like to propose a new arrangement, full membership with technology sharing in both directions. No resource tributes, no military occupation, a true alliance. The Secretary-General smiled. That sounds like a much better starting point for negotiations. Later, as the formal meetings continued, James found himself alone with Admiral Dorax in a quiet corner of the building. I must ask, Dorax said, his voice low, why did you not tell us what you were building? We might have helped. James looked thoughtful. Would you have believed us, or would you have seen it as a desperate attempt to avoid your protection? Dorax's fins rippled in what James now recognized as amusement. Perhaps you are right. We have grown accustomed to being the protectors. It did not occur to us that protection could take such a different form. That's the thing about humans, James replied with a smile. We rarely solve problems the way others expect. You thought we needed a fleet of big ships, but we created something better. Indeed, Dorax agreed, and I suspect the galaxy will never be quite the same because of it. As night fell over Geneva, Earth's new satellite constellation glimmered in the sky, thousands of points of light forming a protective net around the planet. Not the fleet the Concord had expected, but something uniquely human and far more effective than anyone could have imagined. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from over 30 species gathered in small clusters, their voices hushed despite the vast space. They came from worlds with 3 suns, from ocean planets, and from the edges of black holes, yet they all shared one common feeling today. Fear. Admiral Krell of the Arcturian Empire adjusted his ceremonial armor and leaned toward Ambassador Loth. Is it true? Have they really sent it? He asked, mandibles clicking with anxiety. Loth's skin rippled in the Mantodian equivalent of a nod. The humans have deployed the Nemesis to our sector. It will arrive within 3 cycles. A visible shudder passed through their group. Even General Urzek, a massive reptilian warrior whose species had conquered 17 worlds, seemed to shrink at the news. I've heard it can appear out of nowhere, whispered a delegate from the silicon-based Quartz Collective. One moment empty space, the next, destruction. That's nothing, said a blue-skinned diplomat. My cousin served on an outpost near human space. He swears he saw the Nemesis absorb a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon, and then return fire with twice the power. Admiral Krell snorted. Exaggerations. No ship cold. Do you remember the Battle of Proxion? Interrupted General Urzek. The group fell silent. No one needed reminding of how a single human vessel had decimated the most powerful fleet in the Dominion Armada. What I don't understand, said Ambassador Loth, is how we ever underestimated them in the first place. 20 years earlier, humanity had made its first contact with the galactic community. Earth had just developed faster than light travel, and their exploratory vessel, a small, ungainly ship called the Horizon, had stumbled upon a Galactic Council outpost. The Council's initial assessment was dismissive. Humans were physically unimpressive. No natural weapons, average strength, unremarkable senses. Their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. In the vast library of spacefaring species, humanity seemed destined to be a footnote, perhaps useful for trade, but nothing more. This changed when the Dominion, a powerful coalition of militaristic species, attacked Earth's first colony on Proxima Centauri without provocation. The small settlement of 10,000 people was nearly wiped out before help could arrive. The galactic community expected humans to retreat, to abandon their colonization efforts, perhaps to beg for protection from the Council. Instead, humanity did something that shocked every observer species. They built the Nemesis. Captain Jack Reynolds stood by the viewport in his quarters, looking out at the shipyard where the Nemesis hung in space like a predator at rest. Even after commanding her for 3 years, the sight still filled him with a complex mixture of pride and solemn responsibility. The ship didn't look particularly frightening at first glance. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts of the Arcturian Empire or the organic-looking vessels of the Mantodian Alliance, the Nemesis had clean, functional lines. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, creating the impression that you were looking at a ship-shaped hole in space. Only the occasional pulse of blue light from the engine ports and weapon systems suggested the power contained within. A chime at his door pulled Reynolds from his thoughts. "Enter," he called, turning from the viewport. Admiral Wilson stepped into the room. Despite being in her 60s, she moved with the energy of someone half her age. Her gray hair was cut in a practical style, and her uniform bore the simple insignia of Earth Defense Command. "Jack," she said with a nod, "you've read the briefing." Reynolds gestured to his tablet. "The Dominion's on the move again. 3 neutral systems attacked in the past month. The Galactic Council is finally asking for our help." "Not just our help," Wilson corrected. "They're asking specifically for the Nemesis." A grim smile crossed Reynolds' weathered face. Funny how quickly they've changed their tune. From primitive apes to begging for our protection in less than 2 decades. Don't get cocky. The Dominion's fleet has grown since your last encounter. Intelligence suggests they've developed countermeasures based on your previous engagements. Reynolds shrugged. They always do. And we always have something new for them. Admiral Wilson studied him for a moment. "This mission is different, Jack. The Council intelligence suggests something bigger behind these Dominion movements. They're not just conquering for resources anymore. They're looking for something." "Any idea what?" "No. That's part of your mission. Find out what's driving them. And if necessary, stop it." She handed him a secure data chip. "Full mission details. Your crew has been notified and is preparing for departure." Reynolds took the chip and slipped it into his uniform pocket. "When do we leave?" 12 hours. The Council is sending a representative to join you." Reynolds frowned. "We don't need a babysitter. Consider it a diplomatic necessity. Besides, having eyes on the inside of the Council might prove useful." Admiral Wilson moved toward the door but paused. "Jack, I know your history with the Dominion after what happened at the colony. Remember that this mission is about protection, not revenge." After the Admiral left, Reynolds returned to the viewport. The Nemesis would soon detach from the shipyard and head toward the front lines again. He thought about his crew, the best Earth had to offer, handpicked for their skills and adaptability. What made the Nemesis truly dangerous wasn't its advanced weapon systems, its adaptive shields, or even its revolutionary stealth technology. It was the human minds that controlled it. Unpredictable, creative, and capable of the kind of lateral thinking that so often confused and confounded enemy tacticians. Reynolds had seen the reports on how alien military academies now study human warfare, trying to understand their seemingly chaotic but effective strategies. He'd heard the rumors about how Dominion ship captains would surrender rather than face the Nemesis in battle. The most feared warship in the galaxy, a metal shell filled with the most dangerous species the stars had ever encountered, humans. "Rest while you can," Reynolds whispered to the distant enemy. "We're coming." The legend of the Nemesis was about to grow again. The Nemesis moved through space like a shadow, its dark hull absorbing nearby starlight. Inside the bridge, Captain Reynolds studied the holographic display showing their destination, the Vega outpost, or rather, what remained of it. Final approach to the Vega trading station, announced Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez from the helm. Her fingers moved confidently across the control panel, guiding the massive warship with precision that belied its size. "Stealth systems at maximum," added Tom Miller, the ship's chief engineer. Unlike most of the crew in their neat uniforms, Tom wore a utility vest covered in tools and had a perpetual smudge of grease somewhere on his face. "They won't see us coming." Reynolds nodded. "Let's hope there's something left to find." David scanned for survivors. David Chen, the ship's eye specialist, was already working his console. Young and brilliant, he had written half the Nemesis's adaptive algorithms himself. "No life signs detected, Captain. The station's been completely destroyed. Based on radiation signatures, I'd estimate the attack happened 48 hours ago." Reynolds frowned. Vega Outpost had been neutral territory, a trading hub where dozens of species conducted business. The Dominion's attack made no strategic sense, unless they were sending a message. The bridge doors slid open to admit their unwanted guest. Ambassador Vex of the Galactic Council moved with the floating grace of his species, 6 tentacle-like limbs mostly hidden beneath ornate robes. His large eyes blinked rapidly as he took in the bridge. "Captain Reynolds," the ambassador said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language. "Have we arrived at the crime scene?" Reynolds gestured toward the view screen where the remains of the station were becoming visible. "See for yourself." The destruction was absolute. What had once been a bustling outpost housing over 5,000 beings was now a field of debris. Twisted metal and frozen bodies drifted in the vacuum. Ambassador Vex's skin turned a pale blue, a sign of distress in his species. "This is worse than we feared. The Dominion has never been so thorough in their destruction before." "They were looking for something," Reynolds said, pacing the bridge. David analyzed the attack pattern. "Maria, take us in closer. Keep scanning for any active data cores that might have survived." As the Nemesis drifted through the wreckage, Tom's console began beeping. "Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature at the edge of the debris field. It's faint, but it matches Dominion technology." "A trap?" Reynolds asked. Tom shook his head. "Doesn't look like it. Might be a damaged ship or an escape pod." "Approach with caution," Reynolds ordered. "Shields at maximum. Ambassador, you might want to hold onto something." The Nemesis glided toward the energy signature, weapons systems quietly humming to life. The ship's legendary adaptive shields, capable of analyzing enemy weapons and adjusting their frequencies in real time, created a barely visible shimmer around the hull. "It's a Dominion scout ship," Maria reported. "Heavily damaged. 1 life sign aboard." Reynolds smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let's go fishing." 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis detention center, watching the prisoner through one-way glass. The Dominion soldier belonged to the Crex species, reptilian, aggressive, and known for their fanatical loyalty. "He's not going to talk easily," said Maria, who had joined Reynolds for the interrogation. "Crex soldiers are conditioned to resist questioning." "Everyone talks eventually," Reynolds replied, "especially when they realize their masters have abandoned them." He entered the room, Ambassador Vex trailing behind him. The Crex soldier hissed, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Human filth," the soldier spat. "Kill me and be done with it." Reynolds calmly took a seat across from him. "Why would I kill my only source of information? I'm more interested in why the Dominion is suddenly attacking neutral outposts." "I will tell you nothing." Reynolds smiled. "You don't have to." He nodded to Maria, who activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing the scout ship's navigational data. "Your ship's computer was damaged, but not completely destroyed. We know where you've been, and we know where your fleet was headed next." The Crex soldier's eyes widened slightly. "A tell." "What I don't know," Reynolds continued, "is why the Dominion is suddenly interested in ancient artifacts. The data we recovered mentions something called the Archive." The prisoner's reaction was immediate and visceral. His scales rippled with fear. Ambassador Vex leaned forward. The archive. That's just a myth. A repository of knowledge supposedly left by the first ones before they disappeared. Not a myth, the Crex soldier whispered, seemingly forgetting his earlier defiance. They found it. The Masters found its location. The Masters. Reynolds pressed. You mean the Dominion High Command? The soldier laughed, a harsh, grating sound. The High Command are just puppets now. The Harbingers have returned. They guide us to glorious purpose. Ambassador Vex's skin paled dramatically. Impossible. The Harbingers are just stories used to frighten children. An ancient species that supposedly seeded the galaxy with life and then disappeared. They never left, the soldier said, his eyes taking on a fanatic gleam. They waited. And now they've chosen the Dominion as their instrument. With the power of the archive, they will reshape the galaxy as it was meant to be. Reynolds and Maria exchanged glances. This was far beyond a simple border skirmish or resource grab. Where is this archive? Reynolds asked. The soldier smiled, revealing those sharp teeth again. You're already too late, human. The fleet departs for the Helios cluster tomorrow. The archive will be ours, and then nothing, not even your precious nemesis, will stand against us. Back on the bridge, Reynolds called his senior staff together. Tom, Maria, David, and the ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Alex Foster, gathered around the command table. What we're hearing makes no sense, Tom said, scratching his beard. The Harbingers are just myths. Every spacefaring species has some version of the story. Myths often have a basis in fact, David pointed out. And it would explain the Dominion's sudden change in tactics. They've always been aggressive, but never this destructive without clear purpose. Reynolds turned to Ambassador Vex. What does the Council know about the Helios cluster? It's an unexplored region, the ambassador admitted. Dangerous stellar phenomena have made it difficult to survey. If something is hidden there, something ancient, it could have remained undiscovered for millennia. Reynolds made his decision. Set a course for the Helios cluster. Maximum speed. We need to get there before the Dominion fleet. Captain, Maria said cautiously, even for the Nemesis, that's dangerous territory. The radiation alone is exactly why we're the only ship that can reach it in time. Reynolds finished for her. Our shields can adapt to the radiation. I need options, people. If the Dominion believes they found some kind of super weapon or ancient technology, we need to know what we're dealing with. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds. Captain, if the Harbingers are real, if they've truly returned, this could change everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Reynolds looked at the ambassador grimly. What concerns me more is how it might change our future. Whatever's waiting in the Helios cluster, we can't let the Dominion reach it first. The Nemesis altered course, its powerful engines flaring to life. The hunt had begun, not just for the Dominion fleet, but for answers to a mystery as old as the stars themselves. The Helios cluster glowed like a wound in space, its swirling gases illuminated by the light of unstable stars. The Nemesis hovered at its edge, sensors probing the dangerous region ahead. Radiation levels are off the charts, Tom reported from his engineering station. His normally cheerful face was creased with concern. Even with our adaptive shields, we'll only have about 6 hours before systems start degrading. Captain Reynolds nodded, studying the holographic map floating above the central console. Any sign of the Dominion fleet? David adjusted his instruments. Nothing yet, but all this interference makes long-range scanning difficult. They could be. Wait. He straightened suddenly. Contact. 3 Dominion warships at the edge of our sensor range. Patrol vessels, Lieutenant Alex Foster said, analyzing the tactical display. Scout class. They haven't spotted us yet. Reynolds smiled grimly. Good. That means the main fleet hasn't arrived. Let's keep it that way. Maria, take us in, silent running. Stay in the radiation shadow of that larger asteroid. As Maria guided the ship forward, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds, his large eyes blinking rapidly in anxiety. "Captain, I must object to this course of action," the ambassador said. "The Council authorized you to gather intelligence, not to engage the Dominion directly." "With all due respect, Ambassador," Reynolds replied without taking his eyes off the display. "We're in unexplored space chasing myths and legends. The rules of engagement just changed." The tension on the bridge was thick as the Nemesis slipped silently through the cluster. Every crew member knew what was at stake. If the prisoner was right about the Harbingers, about this mysterious archive, they couldn't afford to wait for Council approval. "We're within visual range of the patrol ships," Maria announced. "They're in standard search formation, scanning the inner cluster." Reynolds moved to the tactical station. "Alex, target their engines and communication arrays. Precision strikes only. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Aye, Captain." Alex's fingers danced across his console, weapons locked and ready. Reynolds took a deep breath. Fire. The Nemesis's advanced weaponry came to life with barely a tremor. 4 brilliant energy beams lanced out into space, striking the unsuspecting Dominion vessels with surgical precision. The first 2 ships immediately lost power, drifting helplessly. The third managed to fire a single wild shot before its weapons went offline. "Direct hits on all targets," Alex reported with professional satisfaction. "All 3 vessels are disabled." "Any distress signals?" Reynolds asked. David shook his head. "We got their communications before they could send anything. The Dominion fleet won't know what happened." "Good work, everyone," Reynolds said. "Tom, prepare a boarding party. I want their navigational data and any information about this archive." 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis's war room with his senior officers and 3 prisoners, Dominion commanders captured from the patrol ships. Unlike the fanatical Krex soldier they'd captured earlier, these officers belonged to the Turcan species. Tall, slender beings with gray skin and 4 eyes positioned around their elongated heads. "Your ships have been disabled, your crews confined," Reynolds told them calmly. "Tell us about the archive and the Harbingers, and you'll be treated fairly." The lead Turcan, who had identified himself as Commander Xorl, stared at Reynolds with undisguised hatred. "You have no idea what forces you're interfering with, human. The Harbingers have chosen the Dominion. Your species is nothing but an evolutionary mistake that will be corrected soon enough." Tom snorted. "Friendly bunch, aren't they?" Reynolds leaned forward. "Let me make something clear, Commander. Right now, your main fleet doesn't know you've been captured. They don't know the Nemesis is here. That can change with a single transmission." He paused. "Tell me what I want to know, and perhaps we can reach an accommodation." The Turcan commanders exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. "The archive is real," Xorl said finally. "An ancient repository of knowledge and technology left by the Harbingers. For millennia, it was just a legend, until 3 months ago when our deep space archaeologists discovered references to its location in the ruins on Proxima VI. And these Harbingers," Ambassador Vex interrupted. "You claim they've returned." Xorl's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "They never left. They've been dormant, waiting for worthy successors to claim their legacy. The Dominion proved worthy." "How convenient," Maria muttered. "The archive contains weapons," Xorl continued, ignoring the interruption. "Weapons that will allow us to reshape the galaxy according to the Harbinger's original vision. A unified order under one rule." Reynolds studied the alien commander. "You believe this? That some ancient species has chosen the Dominion as their heirs?" "I have seen them, human," Xorl replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I have spoken with the Harbinger emissary. Their power is beyond comprehension." Before Reynolds could respond, the ship's alert system activated with a shrill warning. "Captain to the bridge." David's voice came over the comm. "Multiple contacts approaching fast." When Reynolds reached the bridge, the situation was already critical. The main view screen showed at least 15 Dominion warships entering the cluster, including 3 massive dreadnoughts. They must have been waiting just outside sensor range, Alex said, already activating defensive systems. They'll be within weapons range in 3 minutes. Reynolds took his command chair. Battle stations, shields at maximum. Ambassador, I suggest you find somewhere secure to wait this out. Ambassador Vex, however, remained on the bridge. Captain, there are too many. Even the Nemesis can't stand against a fleet this size. We should retreat, report to the Council, and let them reach the archive first. Reynolds shook his head. Not an option. He turned to his crew. Tom, divert all available power to shields and weapons. Maria, plot an intercept course. David, scan for weaknesses in their formation. As the crew prepared for battle, Reynolds studied the approaching enemy fleet. The odds were overwhelming, but the Nemesis had faced long odds before. What made this ship truly feared throughout the galaxy wasn't just its advanced technology. It was the human ability to adapt, to think laterally, to find solutions where none seemed possible. Captain, David said suddenly, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the lead dreadnought. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Reynolds frowned. A new weapon? Possibly. Or, David worked his console feverishly. Captain, I think they've already found something from the archive. That energy signature doesn't match any known technology in our database. Time to intercept, Reynolds asked. 2 minutes, Maria replied. Reynolds stood, addressing his crew. This is what the Nemesis was built for. We're outnumbered, yes, but they expect us to either run or fight conventionally. A grim smile crossed his face. Let's show them why humans are the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. The Nemesis surged forward, its engines flaring brilliantly against the backdrop of the Helios cluster. As the distance to the Dominion fleet closed, Reynolds gave an order that made even Ambassador Vex stare in disbelief. All power to forward shields. Set collision course for the lead dreadnought. The Nemesis accelerated, becoming a dark arrow aimed directly at the heart of the enemy fleet. On every Dominion ship, alarms would be sounding. Commanders shouting orders, gunners scrambling to target the human vessel apparently intent on suicide. It was exactly the confusion Reynolds had been counting on. Now, Maria, he commanded, execute maneuver Theta. At the last possible moment, the Nemesis veered sharply, cutting between 2 dreadnoughts. Its weapons fired in a precise pattern, targeting engines, weapons arrays, and shield generators. 3 smaller Dominion vessels, unable to adjust their course in time, collided with each other in their hurry to avoid the human warship. Hit and run, Reynolds ordered. Keep moving. Don't give them a stationary target. The battle had begun, and the legend of the Nemesis was about to grow even larger. The Nemesis shuddered as another volley of enemy fire struck its shields. Captain Reynolds gripped the arms of his command chair, watching as damage reports flooded the tactical display. Shields at 42%, Tom called out from engineering, his voice tense but controlled. Smoke drifted from a damaged console nearby, and emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the bridge. That last hit damaged the port stabilizers. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched the ongoing battle. Despite the Nemesis' impressive showing, 5 enemy vessels disabled, 2 destroyed. The Dominion fleet still outnumbered them significantly. The 3 dreadnoughts had moved into a triangular formation, trying to trap the human warship between them. Maria, evasive pattern Delta, Reynolds ordered. David, what's the status of that lead dreadnought? The one with the strange energy readings. David, working frantically at his station, looked up with concern. It's holding position at the edge of the battle. Captain, the energy signature is growing stronger. I think they're charging something big. Before Reynolds could respond, the Nemesis rocked violently. Sparks cascaded from overhead panels, and several crew members were thrown from their stations. Direct hit to our aft section. Alex shouted over the blaring alarms. Shields failing. Reynolds made an instant decision. Get us out of here. Full retreat into the cluster. Maria didn't question the order, immediately altering their course. The Nemesis turned sharply, its engines flaring as it accelerated away from the Dominion fleet toward the dense heart of the Helios cluster. Ambassador Vex, who had remained on the bridge despite the danger, approached Reynolds. Captain, the radiation levels deeper in the cluster are lethal. Even your adaptive shields won't protect us for long. They don't know that, Reynolds replied grimly. And right now, I'll take radiation over those dreadnoughts. As the Nemesis plunged deeper into the swirling gases and debris of the cluster, the energy readings from the lead Dominion dreadnought peaked. A brilliant beam of green energy lanced out, cutting through space where the Nemesis had been moments before. What was that? Tom demanded, his eyes wide as he studied the readings. That weapon would have cut right through our shields if it had hit us. Hardinger technology. Ambassador Vex whispered, his skin pale with fear. The legend spoke of weapons that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. Reynolds watched the tactical display as the Dominion fleet hesitated at the edge of the cluster. They're not following us in. Good. That gives us time. He turned to his crew. Damage report. The news wasn't good. The Nemesis had sustained significant damage to its propulsion systems and weapons arrays. Shields were functioning at minimal levels, and several decks had been sealed off due to hull breaches. We need time to make repairs, Tom said, already organizing repair teams. At least 12 hours to get us back to fighting condition. Reynolds nodded. Find us somewhere to hide, Maria. Somewhere the radiation and debris will mask our signature. There's a dense nebula formation about 20 kilometers ahead, Maria reported. It should provide cover, but... She hesitated. The radiation levels there are extreme, Captain. Even with repairs, we can't stay long. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Reynolds said. For now, get us there and power down all non-essential systems. Alex, keep passive sensors running. I want to know if anything approaches. As the Nemesis limped into the concealing clouds of the nebula, Reynolds called his senior staff to the damaged war room. They needed a new plan. The Dominion fleet is holding position at the edge of the cluster, Alex reported, pointing to the tactical display. They've established a perimeter. They're waiting for something. Reinforcements, most likely, Ambassador Vex suggested. If they've truly aligned with these harbingers, who knows what forces they might bring to bear? Reynolds studied the data they'd gathered. What about this archive? Do we have any idea where exactly it's located? David nodded, bringing up a three-dimensional map of the cluster. Based on the navigational data we recovered from the patrol ships, I believe it's here. He highlighted a region near the center of the cluster. There's something unusual about this section. The radiation patterns don't match natural formations. An artificial structure? Tom asked. Possibly. Something is affecting the surrounding space. It could be some kind of shielding or cloaking technology, David answered. Reynolds considered their options. The Nemesis was damaged, outnumbered, and deep in hostile territory. By all logical measures, they should retreat, return to council space, and report what they'd discovered. That would be the prudent course of action. But humans hadn't become the most feared species in the galaxy by being prudent. We need to reach the archive before they do, Reynolds said finally. If even half of what we've heard is true, we can't let that kind of power fall into Dominion hands, or these harbingers, whatever they are. With respect, Captain, Maria interjected, how do we get past a blockade of 15 warships with our current damage? Reynolds smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. We don't. We go through the cluster itself. Tom looked aghast. Through the densest part. The radiation would fry our systems in minutes. Not if we modify the shields, Reynolds countered. David, you've been studying the cluster's radiation patterns. Is there any way we could adapt our shielding to withstand it, even temporarily? David hesitated, then nodded slowly. Theoretically, yes. If we reconfigure the shield harmonics to match the specific radiation frequencies of the cluster. He trailed off, already working through calculations in his head. Do it, Reynolds ordered. Tom, I need every bit of power you can give us for the shields. Strip non-essential systems if you have to. As his officers dispersed to carry out their tasks, Ambassador Vex remained behind. I've been watching you, Captain, the ambassador said quietly. All these years, the Council has tried to understand what makes humans different from other species. Why your ships, especially the Nemesis, are so feared. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. And, have you figured it out? I believe so. Vex's large eyes studied Reynolds carefully. It's not your technology. It's not even your unpredictable tactics. It's your nature as persistence hunters. Persistence hunters. Yes, most intelligent species evolved from prey animals or from ambush predators. They either flee from danger or strike quickly and retreat if unsuccessful. The ambassador gestured at the tactical display, showing the overwhelming odds against them. But humans, you never stop. You pursue your prey relentlessly, adapting, overcoming obstacles, no matter how long it takes. When a human ship like the Nemesis starts hunting you, the galaxy has learned there is no escape. You will find a way, no matter the cost. Reynolds considered this. An interesting theory, Ambassador. But right now, we're the ones being hunted. Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. Are you? Or are you merely changing the nature of the hunt? The ambassador moved toward the door, then paused. Your ship's name is aptly chosen, Captain. In human mythology, Nemesis was the goddess of retribution against those who showed arrogance before the gods. I wonder which side of this conflict has shown such arrogance. After the ambassador left, Reynolds returned to the bridge. Repair teams worked frantically around him, welding damaged panels, rerouting power systems, and patching hull breaches. Despite their desperate situation, not one crew member suggested retreat. The humans of the Nemesis were indeed persistence hunters. And now, deep in the heart of the Helios cluster, surrounded by enemies and deadly radiation, they prepared to continue their hunt. The true enemy waited ahead, ancient, powerful, and arrogant. They had never faced humans before. They had never faced the Nemesis. They would learn, as countless others had learned, why this human ship was the most feared vessel in the galaxy. The Nemesis drifted through the heart of the Helios cluster, its modified shields glowing with an eerie blue light as they filtered the deadly radiation. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching as the impossible structure came into view ahead of them. The archive was nothing like what any of them had imagined. It wasn't a planet or a space station. It appeared to be a massive crystalline structure, shaped like a perfect dodecahedron, each face glittering with internal light. It hung in space, seemingly untouched by the chaos of the surrounding cluster, as if the laws of physics simply didn't apply to it. Size estimate, Reynolds asked quietly. Approximately 200 kilometers across, David replied, his voice filled with awe. The energy readings are, well, they're beyond anything in our database. The structure appears to be made of some kind of crystalline material, but it's unlike any element we've encountered. Ambassador Vex stood transfixed by the sight. The archive of the Harbingers, he whispered. It's real. And we're not the only ones who found it, Alex said grimly, pointing to the tactical display. 3 Dominion ships approaching from the far side. Smaller vessels, they must have slipped through the cluster while the main fleet maintained the blockade. Reynolds nodded. They were never going to risk their dreadnoughts in here. These ships are expendable. He turned to Maria. How long until they reach the archive? 10 minutes, maybe less, she answered. We're closer, but with our damaged engines. Then we need to move now, Reynolds decided. Tom, give us everything the engines have left. Alex, ready what weapons we have. We may only get one shot at this. As the Nemesis limped forward, its battle-scarred hull reflecting the glow of the archive, Reynolds felt a strange calm settle over him. They had come too far to fail now. Beyond the view screen, the vast crystalline structure grew larger, magnificent, and terrifying in its alien perfection. "Captain," David called suddenly, "I'm detecting an energy surge from the archive. It's scanning us." Before anyone could respond, a beam of pure white light shot from the archive, engulfing the Nemesis. The ship's systems flickered, displays went dark for a moment, then returned to normal. "What was that?" Reynolds demanded. "Some kind of scanning technology," David replied, checking his readings. It didn't damage any systems, but it penetrated every part of the ship, right down to the molecular level. A new alert sounded. "The Dominion vessels are accelerating," Alex reported. "They'll reach the archive in 5 minutes." Reynolds made his decision. "Take us in. Full speed." The Nemesis surged forward, closing the distance to the archive. As they approached, one of the massive crystal faces began to change, the solid surface rippling like water. A vast opening appeared, revealing the cavernous interior glowing with the same ethereal light. "It's inviting us in," Tom said, bewildered. "Or it's a trap," Alex countered. Reynolds studied the opening. "David, any sign of weapons powering up, force fields, anything defensive?" "Nothing, Captain. The structure remains passive." "The Dominion ships are changing course," Maria reported. "They're making directly for us now. Weapons hot." Reynolds took a deep breath. "Take us inside." The Nemesis passed through the opening, entering a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The interior of the archive was larger than should have been physically possible, with soaring crystalline columns and platforms suspended in space. Everything glowed with internal light, creating an environment of otherworldly beauty. "It's bigger on the inside," Tom muttered. "That's not possible." "According to our understanding of physics, no," David agreed, studying his readings in fascination. "But clearly, the Harbingers operated on principles we don't yet comprehend." As the Nemesis glided further into the chamber, the opening behind them began to close. The Dominion ships, realizing they were about to be shut out, fired desperately. Energy weapons struck the crystal surface of the archive, but dissipated harmlessly. "The archive is sealing itself," Alex said. "The Dominion ships can't get in." A moment later, the opening vanished entirely, leaving the Nemesis alone inside the impossible structure. The ship's engines powered down automatically, and they found themselves held in place by some unseen force. "Now what?" Maria asked, looking around nervously. Her question was answered almost immediately. A figure materialized on the bridge, a being of pure energy, vaguely humanoid in shape, but constantly shifting, ripples of blue and white light flowing through its form. "Greetings, travelers," the being said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through their ears. "I am the keeper of the archive. We have been waiting a very long time for worthy successors." Reynolds stepped forward cautiously. "We are from Earth. My name is Captain Jack Reynolds of the starship Nemesis." "We know who you are, humans," the keeper replied. "Just as we know of the Dominion and their misguided alliance with those who claim to be harbingers." The energy being's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "They are not what they claim to be." Ambassador Vex moved to stand beside Reynolds. "Then what are they? Who are the true harbingers?" "The harbingers were the first sentient species in this galaxy," the keeper explained. "They arose billions of years ago, flourished, and eventually transcended physical form. The beings guiding the Dominion are merely echoes, broken fragments of consciousness left behind, corrupted by time and isolation." "And the archive?" Reynolds asked. "What exactly is it?" "It is the sum total of Harbinger knowledge and technology," the keeper said, "created to guide younger species when they were ready. Many have found their way here over the eons, but none passed the final test, until now." "What test?" Reynolds asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The test of intent," the keeper replied simply. When faced with power beyond measure, what would you do with it? The Dominion sought conquest. They would use our knowledge as weapons to subjugate others. But you, humans, the energy being's form brightened. You came not to claim power, but to prevent its misuse. Despite being outnumbered, despite facing certain defeat, you persisted. Not for conquest, but for protection. Reynolds looked around at his crew, humans who had risked everything on this impossible mission. So what happens now? Now you have a choice, the Keeper said. The archive contains knowledge that could elevate your species to heights you cannot imagine. Technologies that would make you undisputed masters of the galaxy. It is yours to claim. Reynolds considered this for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, that's not why we came. The Keeper's form pulsed with light. Explain. We came to stop the Dominion from gaining that power, yes. But we don't seek to replace them as conquerors. Reynolds gestured to his ship, the battle-scarred nemesis that had become legend throughout the galaxy. We built this ship as a protector, not just for humans, but for all species who wish to live in peace. If the archive contains knowledge, it should be shared with all who would use it wisely, not hoarded by any single species. A profound silence fell across the bridge. The Keeper's energy form seemed to grow brighter, more defined. In all our long watching, no species has ever given such an answer, the Keeper said finally. And that, Captain Reynolds, is why humans are truly worthy. The being of energy expanded, enveloping the bridge in gentle light. Return to your galaxy. Deal with the corrupted echoes that call themselves harbingers. When you are ready, when all the sentient species of your galaxy are ready, the true archive will be waiting. The light intensified, blinding in its brilliance. When it faded, the nemesis was no longer inside the archive. They hovered in open space, the Helios cluster behind them. Ahead, they could see the distant stars of Council space. More surprising, the ship had been completely repaired. Every damaged system, every battle scar, gone. Captain, Alex said in amazement, the Dominion fleet. They're in retreat. All of them. And there's something else. The energy signature we detected from their lead dreadnought is gone. Whatever Harbinger technology they had has been neutralized. Reynolds nodded slowly, understanding. The Keeper has given us a chance. Not dominance, but opportunity. On the journey back to Council space, the legend of the Nemesis grew yet again, but not as a ship of destruction. The story spread of how the feared human warship had faced down the combined might of the Dominion and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human qualities of persistence, sacrifice, and mercy. When offered the power to rule the galaxy, humans had chosen a different path. And that perhaps was why they were the most feared and most respected species among the stars.